Well, this accused killer's escaped custody twice in the last month alone, and the government continues to treat him like he's a child. Well, now he's on the run with another teen who's also been accused of homicide, and we're going to look into this case and try to figure out where these two are going next. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Profiling Evil. Thanks for coming on board here today, and please hit that like and subscribe button and ring the bell. Make sure you're sharing this with your friends. Now listen, David Atkins, he's a 17-year-old kid accused of murder. He escaped from the East Baton Rouge, Louisiana Juvenile Detention Center just a few days ago. But before that, 2 weeks earlier, he escaped from the same facility, accompanied by another minor who was named Jeremiah Green. Now he, also Green, is accused of attempted murder. And I'm going to use their names because they've been publicly released already, and frankly, I suspect they're going to be charged as adults. The pair were on the lam for just over 24 hours before they were captured a few weeks ago. Within days, the district attorney was trying to get these two juveniles transferred to a more secure facility, but it didn't happen fast enough. In 2 weeks' time, Atkins hatched another successful escape from this detention center. This time, he had an accused killer and fellow juvenile, Willie Jackson, in tow. Jackson also accused of murder. Now, some media reports are suggesting that a detention officer stood by and watched as these two forced their way through a door, climbed to the roof of the facility, and ran off into the night. This case clearly highlights why detention centers that house violent juvenile offenders should be fortified, just like adult jails and prisons. In fact, the underdeveloped brain of a juvenile, the reckless nature of kids, makes it so much more important that these facilities, especially if they're housing accused killers, are well-staffed and incredibly secure. Now, the lip service that's being paid by the mayor and other officials about getting a new and more secure facility, in my opinion, is just that, lip service. Now, I hope that the media will really dig into the requests leading up to this problem. I want to know how many times that sheriff or local law enforcement or the correctional system or the juvenile system said this facility is inadequate. We know now through media reports that facility managers have already received money to improve that facility. But according to all reports, they're still studying the problem and the cure, instead of getting more trained staff on hand who immediately would put more eyes on this group of offenders. Now, Atkins was in the detention center on account of first-degree murder, which was amended to a charge of second-degree murder and attempted second-degree murder. He shot two people. Green was awaiting trial on his charge of attempted second-degree murder in that thing 2 weeks earlier. But let's take a moment and just kind of talk about the man that David Atkins is accused of killing. The victim is a guy named Gregory Cotton. He was only 28 years old, from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Now, authorities with the police department say that this juvenile was arrested just days after Hurricane Ida moved through the city in this thing. The shooting happened at a convenience store at about 9 o'clock in the morning. It was August 30th, 2021. Again, it was the day following Hurricane Ida, and Atkins is accused of shooting Cotton and another 22-year-old man who was with him. They got into a verbal argument in this convenience store. There was a woman with him who was unhurt in this incident, but here's the deal. Cotton died 5 days later. Now, information about this case and the other cases is really sketchy since the suspects in these cases are juveniles. I haven't been able to find anything about Jackson's alleged victims. And Green, I don't know anything about that victim. The juvenile facility, and frankly, before I move on, if you happen to know something, please let me know about these people that were injured by these offenders. The juvenile facility that the accused killers escaped from has been the target of persistent criticism, and there have been repeated escapes and reportedly continuous violence within its walls, including holding staff members hostage, taking their phone, taking their keys, and other kinds of things. In 2021, 5 boys escaped after attacking a staffer. They took her keys, locked her in the cell without a radio, and 2 of the boys attacked other staffers with makeshift gel knives. That was the second jailbreak that year alone. Now, in February of 2022, a fight broke out in which 8 teens started a melee. 3 of them were injured, and the windows were busted and doors were smashed and all kinds of damage occurred. Now, the facility's leadership, the leaders in this group or this organization, are quick to point fingers. Now, the sheriff says the facility is not staffed by sheriff's employees. Rather, it's staffed by juvenile detention employees who complain of understaffing, mixed with a boatload of other violent offenders who are more violent than in the past, and they're all within these walls. One facility leader remarked that this was a serious issue and someone was going to get hurt again. Well, I suspect these 2 offenders out on the road are really putting the public at risk. All the while, $2 million sit in the bank, earmarked for security upgrades for the facility. Now, parish officials state that the upgrades are still in the planning and design phase, although they said immediate repairs and security enhancements were underway. Well, I appeared on News Nation to talk about the escape, and I responded to some of the questions from Ashley Banfield, the anchor there. Let's watch that.
Meantime, I want to bring in Mike King. He is a former homicide detective, 28 years in law enforcement, and he's the co-chair of the FBI's Violent Criminal Apprehension Program. He's also the author of Deceived, an investigative memoir of the Zion Society cult. All right, so here's my question to you, Mike. When you are hunting a 17-year-old or a pair of them, how is it different than if you're hunting a 28 or a 52-year-old? Because I think 17-year-olds are dumber, and yet I've met a lot of really dumb adult criminals.
Yeah, and I've met a lot of pretty cagey 17-year-olds, so it really goes down to the looking at what their background is like. Are they manipulative in nature? Have they learned how to survive on the streets? Are these kids that have really been in and out of the system? Are they spending a lot of time on their own? What are they doing in the community? Are they on the local football team and going to class every day? Or are they out kicking indoors at night and hanging around and getting involved in the drug trade? So we have to look at the sophistication level. We have to look at the environment. We have to look at the support system, and the support system might be created by these predators as they're out doing things, maybe stealing so they have something to eat, or finding and breaking into an abandoned house so they have a place to stay. Or is somebody really supporting them and helping and harboring them and keeping them under this watch of law enforcement?
This is my point. So you're the guy helping to track. Are you calling Aunt Tanya, or are you surveilling Aunt Tanya's house? Because eventually a 17-year-old is going to need Aunt Tanya. Or is it really a matter of it's exactly like the grown-ups? They do the same things. They find the same hot dogs and dumpster diving food, and they camp out in the backwoods. Is it the same pattern, or are these kids just a little more desperate because they're young?
Well, they might be a little more disorganized, Ashley, and I guess that's the real thing. They haven't learned through experience. But here's a kid who's busted out. He's been out on the lam, and he learned some lessons. I guarantee he's learned some lessons and evolved as a result of that. Don't know about the other kid, what his background is, but somehow oil and gas come together in this juvenile facility, and 2 serious offenders get connected with each other and break out. And that makes a really dangerous situation. But it also increases the opportunity for law enforcement to really be able to find these guys, because They probably are connected socially. They probably have found burner phones. They probably reached out to somebody they know, or at least over time they're going to. And that's not just one person, but two that are in the mix that hopefully are going to make some
Yep.
mistakes and law enforcement's going to get to them.
I looked at that kid on the right with the white shirt, Willie Jackson, and the first thing that crossed my mind was, what a little cutie baby face, until I saw the neck tattoo. And I wondered, what kind of kid is already getting neck tattooed at this age? I mean, it just, it just screamed a whole different story than the baby face I'm looking at. Again, I can't reiterate enough that these kids might look like they're not dangerous, but armed and dangerous, police say they are first-degree murder suspects. And my guess is that when they get them, they're going to cuff them in an extra belly chain. Mike King, always good to have you. Thanks so much.
Now, nearly a week after they escape, the two alleged predators remain at large. Police are offering little information, except they're saying, hey, the prisoners might have cut their hair. Okay, I think most would think that they ought to change their appearance. But I thought it would be interesting to take a little look at a map and explore the area a little bit as a way to think about where these two escapees might travel. Let's look at that map. All right, folks, let's take a look at this map. We're going to start with the United States. Now, the area we're talking about, Louisiana, is down here in the south. So over here you've got Florida, Miami. This is Texas. And right here we have Louisiana, and we're going to zoom in to Louisiana and actually continue to go in all the way to Baton Rouge and look at this area. And the thing that's kind of interesting here, I'm going to zoom in as we look at the jail where the escape occurred. There's a couple of things that are kind of interesting. Number one, if someone were to escape this facility, there are a lot of roads going along here and a lot of places where they could have been hitching a ride. Now, I don't believe that it's likely that they would have headed over here into airport property for a couple of reasons. One primary reason is that airports are surrounded with an incredible amount of security. They have a nice fence around them and a lot of cameras. What I do find kind of interesting is if we look to the straight to the west, past Southern University and A&M College, we see all kinds of area where there's swampland and woods and other places. Now here we've got quite a few residential houses going on. So if we bring in this demographic map, we can see that the area around here really is pretty low income. Here it's roughly almost 5,000 people living in this area we've selected here, and the median household income is about $36,000 a year. If we just come to the north a little bit, it drops to $21,000 a year. So again, all of this area out here is a pretty low annual income for the people living there. You can see that all of a sudden we're getting into a lot of area that has places to hide. Now here again is that residential area, so less likely that they would be staying here unless they're being housed and kept secreted by people, or they found an abandoned house like I talked about on News Nation. Now, to the east, you start getting into more rural areas where there are plenty of places to hide. But this, to me, is really interesting because not only does it give you all of this heavy brush and swamp area, think of Brian Laundrie heading to the swamps, but you have the river where they could then gain some access, jump on a boat, maybe get out of the area real quickly. Now, one thing I did find kind of interesting, though, is there are some family members that are living in this particular area, and if these offenders attended high school, you could look in the school district, you could look at other associations. I actually went on to Truth Finder and found a ton of associations in the area that would be places in which law enforcement would potentially like to look at. So this is going to be interesting because now we're talking almost a week. They could be long gone from this area, but this gives us an idea of the facility that they disappeared from. And then as we zoom out, the area in which they could hide out, and it is massive. So this is going to be interesting to see what happens, but let's get back to our discussion. Well, Crime Stoppers is offering a reward for information that leads to the arrest of the two teens, and the amount a whopping $2,000. I don't know if that's really motivating. I hope it's motivating to their peers and people in the area, because these two juveniles, if all the allegations are accurate, are going to be committing crimes in order to support their escape. They gotta eat. They gotta break into places to steal food. They're probably going to need money if they're going to try to travel. And more importantly, they might seriously hurt someone. Something that clearly would fall within their modus operandi if the charges against these two are correct. They are violent offenders if all of this is true. So take a good look at these suspects on the screen. And please, if you see them, or if you see somebody that even looks like them, report it to police. Don't approach these guys. Now, pay close attention to the tattoos and the facial markings. Don't approach them, but stay at a safe distance where you can offer legitimate information to the authorities, and immediately call 911. And yeah, keep in mind that they might have changed their appearance. And keep in mind these two might have separated, and they may not be traveling together anymore. And while the police look for the fugitives and the townsfolk of East Baton Rouge lock their doors and look over their shoulders, I'm going to be watching for the public officials who start to cast blame everywhere else but on themselves. Folks like the East Baton Rouge mayor, who just blamed the facility's outdated infrastructure for the recent escapes. In the same breath, she wonders, where's the money going to come from to fix their problems? Well, I'd suggest pulling the $2 million that's already sitting there and pay this thing forward. Get staff in there to keep more eyes on more offenders. And frankly, pay it forward and get the job done. Because if these alleged killers get out and hurt somebody before they are captured, who knows what kind of litigation the community might be facing. Local agencies might be paying a whole lot more for a lawsuit than building a new building. So what are your thoughts, folks? I hope you'll take a moment and enter them down below and take time to respond to each other. And I want to tell you, I really appreciate you supporting Profiling Evil. Please make sure you're hitting that like and subscribe button over here and share Profiling Evil with your friends. Now listen, if you're looking for a great Christmas gift, stick around for a short announcement just right now about all of the things that we got coming from Profiling Evil for the holidays. Well, hey everybody, I'm Mike from Profiling Evil, and I want to share two great gift ideas for the 2023 Christmas holidays. I'm making available at a special price two of my most popular books. First is Deceived, an investigative memoir of the Zion Society cult, and the second is She Knew No Fear. You can purchase them individually, or you can get them at a special bundled price. And right now, as a special, I'll be signing them if you'd like. Now, Deceived is about my investigation into and the ultimate takedown of a ritual child abuse cult that was sexually abusing children, a large group of children. 12 people were ultimately convicted in this thing following a pre-dawn raid. And although the court process ended decades ago, the suffering that was endured by the children continues today. Now, I wrote this book because some of the victims asked me to tell their story. It happened during a presentation of the case on the Dr. Phil show, as well as several other international news channels. And I was so compelled by the children asking this, now adult women, that we went ahead and wrote the book. The book doesn't reveal the horrors that the kids faced, but it acknowledges that the abuse occurred. More importantly, it's a story about how destructive cults like this one can be destroyed, where the system works and where the system failed in that case. And it talks about how the investigation and the prosecution literally changed the way in which cults are handled today. The book explores the cult recruiting tactics used by this particular group, and they seem to be consistent with other cults. It also talks about how we can protect our loved ones from falling prey to these perverted predators. And here's the really cool news from my perspective. Proceeds from Deceived are going toward building a new children's advocacy center. That's a place where children can be forensically and physically examined, receive physical and emotional care while being prepared for the court system. The hope is that when they walk out of the doors of a children's advocacy center, they're healthier than when they arrived. Deceived is in paperback, and it's available signed for $20. Now, my other book is She Knew No Fear, and it's a story about how I solved my great-great-grandmother's murder. She was shot and killed at a town celebration back in 1891. The story chronicles her journey from her native Scotland home to the United States. This woman walked barefooted across the plains of the United States, and she conquered the perilous Hole in the Rock expedition. She fought wild Indians, and she settled in the Four Corners area of the United States, only to be gunned down at age 40, leaving children behind. One of those children was my grandfather. Now, the book explores how I solved her murder 130 years later, and how miracles from heaven, in my opinion, guided my investigation, resulting in the discovery of my great-great-grandfather's handwritten account of the murder. If you like stories about the Wild West, family history, true crime, this is a book for you, and I think you'd really enjoy She Knew No Fear. Now listen, thanks so much for your support of Profiling Evil. You can get She Knew No Fear hardbound versions for $30 signed and delivered, or you can get a bundle of both books for $45, and I'm happy to put a little personal inscription if you'd like that in there, but you gotta order quickly. Now, we'll look for Profiling Evil on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and of course here on YouTube. And hey, if you like podcasts, dig into Profiling Evil podcasts on your favorite podcast platform. And remember, folks, beginning in January, we're going to bring choir practice back. That's right, live on the first Monday of every month, we're going to go live and have choir practice. We'll have some fun guests on hand, but we're going to spend most of the time just talking to you and answering questions. Hopefully, some of you will be jumping on with us. So from all of us at Profiling Evil, thanks for your support, and we'll see you soon at the next crime scene.